My best friend tried to steal my wife, the ultimate betrayal. You know, they say that up to 20% of new relationships actually start because someone goes after a person who's already taken. 20%. Sounds like a dry statistic, something for a textbook, right? Until it happens to you. Until it's your life, your marriage, and it's your best friend who decides they want to be part of that 20%. He wasn't just any friend. This was Mark, the guy who stood next to me when I married Sarah, the woman I loved more than anything, the man I considered my brother. And he looked me in the eye, week after week, all while knowing he was trying to rip my world apart from the inside. This isn't just a story about his plan. It's about that slow, gut-wrenching realization that the two people you trust most in the world might actually be the ones to destroy everything. It all began with a feeling, this cold dread that just settled in my stomach for no good reason. Just a whisper that something was off. Then, the little things started. Tiny cracks in what I thought was our perfect life. A look between them that lasted just a bit too long. An inside joke I wasn't in on. Mark, suddenly, was always around, always asking about Sarah's day, always interested in our problems. And Sarah, who was my everything, started to drift, slowly, almost like I was imagining it. I kept telling myself I was just being paranoid. I mean, who wouldn't trust their best friend? Their wife? But those whispers got louder, the cracks grew wider, until one day, the whole floor just gave way. And I saw the sickening truth of what he was doing, what they were doing. Mark and I, we went way back. 3rd grade, if you can believe it. We built forts, scraped our knees together, stumbled through those awkward teen years, and yeah, we were best men at each other's weddings. He was family, the brother I never had. When I met Sarah, it felt like the last piece of my life's puzzle just clicked right into place. She was so vibrant, smart, with a laugh that could just fill a room and a kindness that warmed everyone she met. Mark loved her too, you know, in the way a friend should. He'd often say, "You got the best one, man. Don't ever mess it up." And I swear, I never planned to. Our life was good. Not some fairy tale. No, we had our ups and downs like any couple, but it was our good. Solid. Built on what I thought was this bedrock of love and trust. We had a comfortable home, careers we both actually liked, and a circle of friends with Mark, naturally, right in the center of it. Friday night dinners, weekend barbecues, those impromptu movie nights. He was always there. And why wouldn't he be? He was supposed to be Uncle Mark to our future, imaginary kids. He was the guy I'd call at 3 a.m. if the world was ending. The shift was subtle. So subtle, I barely noticed it at first. It was probably about a year ago. Mark had just gone through a really messy breakup, and naturally, Sarah and I were his main support. He started spending more evenings at our place, which wasn't out of the ordinary. What was weird was how his focus began to change. At first, he talked to both of us, then about his ex, asked for advice. But gradually, his conversation started leaning more towards Sarah. He'd ask for her opinion specifically, compliment her a little too often, a little too pointedly. "Sarah, you always know just what to say. That dress looks amazing on you, Sarah. Tom, you're a lucky guy." Innocent enough, right? On the surface, anyway. But how often he did it, the intensity, it started to prickle at the edge of my mind. I remember this one evening. We were talking about some small disagreement Sarah and I had over weekend plans. Trivial stuff. Mark listened, then said, "Well, Sarah has a point, Tom. Maybe you should consider her perspective more." Again, not openly hostile, but there was this undercurrent. It felt less like a friend trying to help and more like him taking her side, subtly making me out to be the one in the wrong. It was one of the first times I felt a flicker of something. Annoyance? Or was it a tiny warning bell, too faint to really hear? I've since learned that betrayers often try to undermine your relationship with these kinds of subtle comments, or they get weirdly interested in your relationship problems. That was Mark, textbook. Sarah, for her part, seemed to enjoy the attention, at least at first. Who wouldn't want to feel validated? She started mentioning him more often. Mark said the funniest thing today. Mark recommended this great new restaurant. Mark thinks I should go for that promotion. And if I ever made even a light-hearted jab at him, her defense of him became quicker, sharper. Oh, don't be like that, Tom. He's just being a good friend. That was another red flag I only saw looking back. My own wife starting to mention him all the time or jump to his defense. I'd just brush it off. This was Mark, my brother, and this was Sarah, my wife. The idea that anything could be seriously wrong felt like I was betraying them both, like it was just my own insecurity talking. But that unease stuck around, this low hum beneath the surface of our everyday lives. The laughter in our home started to feel a little more strained, the silences a little less comfortable. I was standing on what I thought was solid ground, but I couldn't shake the feeling that the earth under my feet was starting to tremble. Our normal was slowly, sneakily, being rewritten, and I was too busy telling myself everything was fine to see the architect of its destruction sharpening his tools right in front of me. Those little pricks of unease soon turned into undeniable stabs of suspicion. It wasn't just one thing, but a whole cascade of them, each one chipping away at my denial. Mark's presence in our lives, once a comfort, started to feel invasive. He began showing up unannounced more often, usually when he knew I was working late or out for a run. Just in the neighborhood. Thought I'd see if Sarah needed anything. Needed anything? It sounded so helpful, so considerate. But it happened way too often. He was creating chances to be alone with her. One Saturday, I came home early from a trip to the hardware store. I walked in and found Mark and Sarah in the kitchen, their heads close together, laughing over something on her phone. The second they saw me, there was this distinct jolt. Sarah's hand flew up to her hair, a nervous habit I knew so well, and Mark straightened up, his smile faltering for a split second before becoming way too broad. Hey man, just showing Sarah this hilarious video. The explanation was quick. Too quick. The air felt charged, like I'd walked in on something private. I tried to shake it off, told myself I was being ridiculous. But the image of them suddenly, almost guiltily, pulling apart replayed in my mind. Then there were the financial favors. Mark knew I was saving up for a special anniversary trip for Sarah and me. He started offering her things. Oh, don't worry about paying me back for lunch, Sarah. I saw this scarf. It reminded me of you. Just a little something. He even offered to help out with some repairs around our house when I was swamped with work, repairs I was perfectly capable of doing myself. It was all framed as generosity, but it felt like he was trying to make her feel indebted to him, to create some kind of bond that didn't include me. Or maybe, to show he could provide in ways I wasn't, even if it was just small stuff. He was subtly trying to show her his value, separate from our relationship. My own interactions with Mark started to change too. He seemed more distant from me, while at the same time getting closer to Sarah. Our conversations became more superficial, less about the deep, meaningful stuff we used to talk about. If I tried to bring up my concerns about him being around too much, he'd flip it. You're being a bit possessive, Tom, don't you think? We're all friends here. Or he'd appeal directly to Sarah. Sarah, you don't think I'm overstepping, do you? And she, more and more, would take his side. Of course not, Mark. Tom's just being sensitive. They us started to feel like her and Mark, and oh yeah, Tom. I began to feel like an outsider in my own marriage, in my own home. The emotional toll was huge. I was constantly on edge, replaying conversations, scrutinizing glances, looking for evidence to either confirm my fears or, desperately, to make them go away. I felt so confused. How could my best friend, my brother, be doing this? Was I losing my mind? Was I the problem? This internal battle, this doubt, it's a classic side effect of this kind of betrayal. The most unsettling thing was the secrecy. Sarah, who used to share everything with me, started having these hushed phone calls. If I walked into the room, she'd end the call abruptly or drop her voice to a whisper. Her phone, once just left casually on the counter, was now always with her, screen down, and often password protected, which was new. When I asked her about it, she'd get defensive. It's just work, or a friend with some drama. You wouldn't be interested. But her eyes wouldn't quite meet mine. This sickening plan, as I later started calling it, wasn't some big, dramatic conspiracy you see in movies. It was a death by 1,000 cuts. A slow, methodical wearing down of boundaries, of trust, of the very foundations of our life. Mark was playing the long game, using his privileged position as my best friend. He was using friendship as a way to infiltrate, which, as I've learned, can make it seem like they have a better chance of success in this kind of messed-up pursuit by reducing some of the usual risks. He wasn't just trying to steal my wife. He was trying to make it look like she was drifting towards him naturally, that their connection was the more real one. And the worst part? For a while, watching Sarah's growing reliance on him, how she defended him, I started to fear he might actually be succeeding. The ground wasn't just trembling anymore. It was actively cracking right under my feet. That gnawing suspicion turned into an obsession. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. My work started to suffer. Every interaction, every shared glance between Mark and Sarah was a potential clue, another potential stab in the back. I knew I couldn't live in this limbo of doubt any longer. I needed to know the truth, no matter how painful it might be. So, I started to look, really look. It began with small things. I noticed Mark's car parked down the street from our house on a weekday afternoon when he was supposed to be at work and Sarah was supposedly working from home. When I casually asked Sarah later if she'd seen Mark, she said no, a little too quickly, a little too emphatically. My heart just sank. Why lie about something so trivial unless there was something to hide? Then came the phone records. It felt like such a violation of Sarah's privacy, and a part of me was screaming against what I was doing. But a louder part, the part that was drowning in suspicion and this desperate need for clarity, pushed me forward. Our phone plan was a family one, and I had access to the call logs online. I'd never looked before. God, I wish I still hadn't. The number of calls and texts between Mark and Sarah was staggering. Way more than between Sarah and me. Lengthy calls late at night, after I'd gone to bed. Flurries of texts all day long. This wasn't how casual friends communicated. This was the communication of something else. The details of his sickening plan started to come together. Mark wasn't just being an overly attentive friend. He was actively, methodically, trying to drive a wedge between Sarah and me, setting himself up as the understanding, supportive alternative. He was a classic opportunist, exploiting any vulnerability he could find in our marriage. He'd listen to Sarah's minor frustrations with me, the kind all couples have, and validate them, even amplify them. You deserve better than that, Sarah. Tom really doesn't appreciate you, does he? He was painting himself as her confidant, her true sympathizer. It turns out, this is a common tactic, creating situations that build emotional intimacy or planting seeds of doubt in the existing relationship. That was Mark's entire playbook. The hardest part was seeing Sarah's role in it, whether she was aware of it or not. She was letting him in. She was sharing our intimate problems with him. She was turning to him for the emotional support she should have been seeking from me, or at least talking to me about first. Had I been a bad husband? Had I become complacent? These questions tortured me. I doubted myself, my worth, everything. That self-doubt is such a common fallout from betrayal. One evening, I decided to come home unexpectedly during one of Sarah's girls' nights out, which, I had a growing suspicion, sometimes included Mark. I told her I was going to be working very late. Instead, I parked down the street and waited. An hour later, Mark's car pulled up to our house. He went inside. My blood ran cold. I sat there for another hour, my mind racing, this storm of anger, hurt, and disbelief just raging inside me. What was happening inside my house? I couldn't take it anymore. I got out of the car, my legs feeling like lead, and walked to my front door. The key trembled in my hand. I pushed the door open. The house was quiet. Too quiet. I walked towards the living room, my heart pounding in my chest like a war drum. And there they were. Not in a compromising position, not physically, not at that moment. But the intimacy was so thick you could cut it with a knife. They were on the couch, close, a bottle of wine on the coffee table, lost in some quiet conversation. Sarah was leaning towards him, her expression soft, attentive. Mark had his hand resting on the back of the couch, just above her shoulder. This scene was so domestic, so comfortable, like they were the couple, and I was the one intruding. When they saw me, Sarah gasped, her face going white. Mark. Mark just looked at me, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. Surprise? Annoyance? Or was it triumph? He didn't look guilty, not in the way a man caught red-handed should. He looked almost expectant, as if he'd been waiting for this moment. The sickening plan wasn't just about stealing my wife. It was about replacing me. It was about him proving he could be a better partner to her, a better man. I've read that people who go after their friends' partners often have this competitive streak. They see relationships as games they can win. That felt chillingly accurate for Mark. He wasn't just trying to take Sarah, he was trying to win her. The shock was profound. This wasn't just some harmless flirtation. This was a calculated campaign, and I had just walked right into the middle of it. The silence in that living room was thick, suffocating. It stretched for what felt like an eternity, the three of us just frozen there in this awful tableau of disbelief and dawning horror. My voice, when I finally found it, was this low tremor, barely recognizable as my own. What is this, Sarah? Mark. Sarah jumped up from the couch, her hands fluttering nervously. Tom, you're home early. We were just... Mark was just keeping me company. Her voice was thin, reedy. She couldn't meet my eyes. Mark, though, he stayed seated, his expression shifting from that initial flicker of surprise to something harder, almost defiant. He leaned back, an arrogant tilt to his head. Yeah, Tom. Keeping her company. Something you haven't been doing a lot of lately, have you? His words hit me like a punch to the gut. The audacity, the sheer, unadulterated gall of it. This man, my supposed best friend, sitting in my home, with my wife, accusing me. Are you serious? I choked out, disbelief warring with this rising tide of fury. You think this is about me not keeping her company? Isn't it? Mark shot back, his voice smooth, almost taunting. Relationships need attention, Tom. They need effort. Maybe if you'd paid more attention to your own, I wouldn't have needed to step in. Step in. I repeated, my voice getting louder. Step in? Is that what you call this? Trying to worm your way into my marriage? Manipulating my wife? Sneaking around behind my back? Sarah finally spoke, her voice pleading. Tom, please, it's not like that. Mark has just been a really good friend to me. He listens. He understands. He understands? I rounded on her, the hurt sharp and piercing. And I don't? After all these years, Sarah, you think he understands you better than I do? This man, I gestured wildly at Mark, who has been systematically trying to destroy everything we've built. Destroy. Mark scoffed, finally getting to his feet. He was taller than me, and he seemed illumined that moment. I'm not destroying anything, Tom. I'm offering Sarah something real. Something you clearly can't give her anymore. She's unhappy, can't you see that? She's unhappy because you've been poisoning her mind against me. I roared, the control I was desperately clinging to finally snapping. You've been whispering lies, exaggerating every minor issue, making her doubt everything. You call yourself a friend? You're a parasite, Mark. A snake. The words hung in the air, raw and ugly. Sarah flinched, tears welling in her eyes. Tom, don't say that. Why not, Sarah? Is it not true? I challenged, my gaze locking with hers. Hasn't he been telling you I don't appreciate you? That you deserve better? Hasn't he been there to conveniently pick up the pieces every time he engineers a new crack in our foundation? Sarah looked away, a sob escaping her. That was answer enough. Mark stepped forward, placing himself slightly in front of Sarah, a protective gesture that made my blood boil. Leave her out of this, Tom. This is between you and me. Oh, it's far from just between you and me, Mark, I spat. She's my wife. Or had you forgotten that in your disgusting little fantasy? I took a step closer to him, my fist clenched. All those years, Mark. All those years I trusted you. I called you brother. And this is how you repay it? By trying to steal the most important person in my life. The sense of betrayal was a physical weight, just crushing my chest. His composure finally cracked. A sneer twisted his lips. Maybe she was never truly yours to begin with if she's so easily stolen. Ever think of that, Tom? Maybe I'm just the one who actually sees her, who actually values her. His words were laced with this chilling lack of remorse, a conviction that he was somehow in the right. He was showing that classic trait of a betrayer, justifying his behavior by convincing himself the relationship was already failing or that he had some special connection. The sheer arrogance, the twisted logic, the complete disregard for decades of friendship. It was too much. I don't remember even thinking. I just reacted. The next thing I knew, my fist connected with his jaw. It wasn't some heroic movie punch. It was clumsy, fueled by raw, unadulterated rage and pain. Mark stumbled back, shock and then fury flashing in his eyes. Sarah screamed. The confrontation didn't solve anything in that explosive moment. It just ripped open the festering wound, exposing all the rot underneath. The trust was shattered. The friendship was dead. And my marriage was hanging by a single, frayed thread, twisting in the toxic wind of his ultimate betrayal. The explosive climax had arrived, and the fallout was just beginning. The sound of my fist hitting Mark's jaw, Sarah's shriek. It was like a bomb had gone off in our living room, the vibrations shaking the very foundations of my world. Mark staggered back, clutching his face, a dark rage replacing that smug look in his eyes. He lunged at me, and for a horrifying second, I thought we were going to get into a full-blown brawl. Two men who once called each other brother reduced to this primal violence over such a devastating breach. But Sarah threw herself between us, sobbing, pushing against Mark's chest. Stop it. Both of you. Just stop it. Her face was a mess of tears and terror. Seeing her like that, so utterly broken, it doused some of the fire in me, replaced by this cold, hollow ache. Mark, breathing heavily, glared at me over Sarah's shoulder. This isn't over, Tom. Oh, it's over, I said, my voice flat, all the earlier heat gone. You and me? We're done. Get out of my house. He hesitated, looking from me to Sarah, maybe expecting her to defend him, to ask him to stay. But Sarah was looking at me, her expression a confusing mix of fear, guilt, and something I couldn't quite make out. She didn't say a word to him. With a final, venomous look in my direction, Mark turned and stormed out, slamming the front door behind him. The sound echoed through the sudden, crushing silence. The immediate aftermath was just a blur of raw emotion and really difficult conversations. Sarah and I didn't sleep that night. We talked, or rather, I mostly listened as she cried and tried to explain. She admitted Mark had been pursuing her for months. She confessed she'd been flattered by his attention, confused by his constant affirmations, especially during times when she and I had been distant or arguing. She said he made her feel seen, but she swore, over and over, that she had never physically cheated on me, that she never intended for things to go this far, that she loved me. But those words, he made me feel seen, they just twisted in my gut. Had I been so blind, so neglectful, that my wife had to find validation in the eyes of another man, my best friend, no less? The self-doubt was immense. Yet, mixed in with it was the cold, hard fact of Mark's calculated manipulation. He had exploited her vulnerabilities, our vulnerabilities, with surgical precision. The betrayal wasn't just Mark's, it was a dual blow. Sarah had allowed him to cross lines. She had kept his intensified attention a secret. She had shared our intimate struggles with him. She had, essentially, created an emotional affair, even if it hadn't become physical. The trust one had in her was deeply, perhaps irrevocably, damaged. People say a marriage can sometimes survive infidelity, but rebuilding that trust is a monumental, uphill battle. The days that followed were agonizing. I felt this overwhelming sense of loss, the loss of my best friend, the potential loss of my marriage, and the loss of the life I knew. The shock and disbelief were constant companions. How could this have happened? How could the two people I loved most be capable of such profound deceit? I told Sarah I needed space. I moved into the guest room. The house felt like a tomb, filled with unspoken accusations and the ghosts of happier times. I avoided our mutual friends, not knowing who knew what, not wanting to see the pity or curiosity in their eyes. This kind of betrayal has ripple effects, impacting not just us but our wider social circle. Mark tried to contact me several times. Calls, texts filled with justifications, attempts to paint me as the unreasonable one. I ignored them all. There was nothing he could say. The friendship wasn't something that could be mended with an apology. It had been systematically poisoned from within. For Sarah, the reality of what she had participated in, and the potential consequences, began to sink in. The charm of Mark's attention likely faded pretty quickly when faced with the wreckage it had caused. I've heard that relationships formed from this kind of poaching are often less satisfying and less stable. If she had entertained any thoughts of a future with him, the ugly reality of his character and the way such a relationship began must have been a harsh awakening. It's like they say, if he could cheat with me, he could cheat on me. The immediate fallout was a landscape of devastation. My closest friendship, obliterated. My marriage, teetering on the brink of collapse. My own sense of self, shattered. The explosive confrontation was over, but the emotional shrapnel was everywhere, and I was left to navigate the painful, uncertain path of trying to piece my life back together, unsure if anything could ever truly be whole again. Before I continue with what happened next, if this story resonates with you, or if you've ever experienced a betrayal that shook your world, I'd really appreciate it if you'd subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. Sharing these experiences can be tough, but it also helps us feel less alone. And if you feel comfortable, share your thoughts in the comments below. Sometimes, just knowing others understand can make a world of difference. Those weeks following the confrontation were some of the hardest of my entire life. The house felt cold, even in the summer heat. Sarah and I moved around each other like ghosts, the silence only broken by these strained, painful conversations. The question hanging in the air was always the same. Could our marriage survive this? Could I ever trust her again? Could I ever forgive this monumental breach? Healing, I quickly learned, isn't a straight line. Some days, I'd wake up with a tiny sliver of hope, a memory of the good times, a belief that maybe, just maybe, we could find our way back. Other days, the anger and hurt were so overwhelming, I could barely breathe. The image of Mark and Sarah on that couch, the echo of his arrogant excuses, her tearful, inadequate explanations, it all just played on a loop in my mind. Sarah, to her credit, seemed genuinely remorseful. She cut off all contact with Mark, blocked his number, his social media, everything. She started individual therapy to understand her own role in what happened, why she'd let herself get drawn in by Mark's manipulations. She encouraged me to go to therapy as well, and eventually, I did. It was there I really began to unpack all the layers of grief, anger, and that profound sense of doubt that had taken root in me. My therapist helped me see that Mark's actions were a reflection of his own character flaws, his lack of boundaries, his competitive nature, his insecurity, rather than just being a judgment on my worth as a husband or a man. We also started couples counseling. It was brutal, laying bare all the pain, the accusations, the fears. There were sessions where we just yelled, sessions where we cried, and sessions where we just sat in stony silence. But slowly, painstakingly, we began to communicate again, truly communicate, perhaps more honestly than we had in years. Sarah had to face the reality that her actions, even if not physically adulterous, had created a deep wound. I had to confront the possibility that maybe I hadn't been as attentive as I could have been, though therapy helped me understand that this in no way excused Mark's predatory behavior or Sarah's choices and how she responded to it. Setting boundaries was crucial. With Mark, it was absolute. No contact, ever again. He was a ghost from a past life. For Sarah and me, it meant rebuilding trust from the ground up. Transparency became everything. Access to phones, open communication about our feelings, no matter how difficult. It felt intrusive at times, a constant reminder of the betrayal, but it was a necessary step. Did I forgive Sarah? Forgiveness is a complex thing. It's not about forgetting or saying what happened was okay. For me, it became about releasing the anger that was consuming me for my own sake, so I could move forward, whether that was with her or without her. It took a long time to even get close to that feeling. There are still days when a shadow of the old pain creeps in. Our marriage didn't magically heal. It's different now. That naive, unconditional trust is gone, replaced by something more cautious, more tested. But in its place, we are slowly building something new, something perhaps more resilient because it has weathered the worst kind of storm. We learned that protecting our marriage means setting clear boundaries with all friendships, keeping things transparent, and dealing with issues directly with each other, rather than confiding in people who might just exploit vulnerabilities. As for Mark, I heard through the grapevine that he tried to spin the story, painting himself as the victim or the hero who tried to save Sarah from an unhappy marriage. It's a common tactic, apparently, but most of our mutual friends saw through it. His reputation took a hit. The truth has a funny way of getting out. Relationships built on such a destructive foundation rarely last, and I doubt any future partner of his would ever truly trust him if they knew the full story. The experience changed me. It made me more wary, more guarded. It's harder to trust, not just in romantic relationships, but in friendships too. That sense of loss for the brotherhood I thought I had with Mark still aches sometimes. But it also made me stronger, more aware of my own needs and boundaries. And it taught me a brutal lesson about the complexities of human nature, the capacity for deceit even in those closest to you, and the long, hard journey of rebuilding after the ultimate betrayal. We are still on that journey, Sarah and I. The ultimate outcome isn't fully written yet, but we're writing it together, one careful, honest day at a time. The scars from a betrayal like this never fully disappear. They become a part of your story, a reminder of the pain, but also, hopefully, of the resilience it took to survive it. Trust, once shattered, is like a broken vase. You can piece it back together, but you'll always see the cracks. This whole ordeal taught me how vital it is to be vigilant in protecting the relationships you hold dear, and the harsh reality that sometimes the deepest wounds come from the hands you once held in friendship and love. It forced me to look at myself, my marriage, and the nature of loyalty in a way I never had before. And while I wouldn't wish this kind of pain on anyone, I've learned that even from the deepest betrayals, growth is possible, and a new, perhaps more cautious, path forward can be forged. Thank you for listening to this story. If you've gone through something similar, please know that you're not alone and healing is possible, even if it's a long road. Please consider subscribing for more stories and discussions. Remember to like this video if it resonated with you, and share your thoughts or experiences in the comments below. Take care, and be kind to yourselves. What you think about this story? Write in the comment your opinion. On my channel, you can watch other revenge or cheating stories. See you soon, my dear viewer.